This story should be very familiar to my generation. At the time, it shook the entire society and caused a massive resonance. Newspapers, television, and other media outlets raced to report on the details of the crime. Meanwhile, rumors spread among the people, constantly fueled by new details, making it nearly impossible to separate the truth from fiction. The town of Shalkar, with a population of only about 25,000, was plunged into panic. Young women began to disappear one after another. Massive search operations yielded no results. Because of this, terrifying rumors began to circulate among the people that a man-eater, a bloodthirsty killer, had appeared on the outskirts of the city. The word was that he targeted only young women. When human remains were finally discovered, these rumors intensified. Under immense pressure from the public and the media, the police had to solve the crime quickly, but there was no evidence. There wasn't even a suspect. This is criminal cases are one of the most notorious and bloody criminal cases in the history of Kazakhstan. A woman arrived at the police station to report that her sister had gone missing. According to her, the sister had been gone for a day. Her phone was turned off, and personal searches by family and friends had yielded no results. Nobody had seen her.
The missing woman's name was Olga Novitskaya. Since she had only been missing for 24 hours, the police did not see enough grounds to launch a full-scale investigation. They argued that an adult is not obligated to inform relatives of their whereabouts. Perhaps she was just taking some time off. Nevertheless, the officers began to look into her social circle. On the day she disappeared, Olga had called a friend, mentioning that she was out with some people and even invited her friend along. But the friend was busy and hung up. After that, Olga vanished without a trace. Her friend didn't know where the gathering was held or who Olga was with. On one hand, it had barely been 24 hours. Perhaps the party dragged on, or she was staying at a friend's house. There was still hope that she would return home and contact her loved ones. However, no one knew at the time that this incident, which seemed minor at first, would soon shake the entire country. 2 days later, another woman went missing. Her name was Janat Saitova. According to her son, who came to the police, they had guests over that day. When he returned home after seeing them off, he found that his mother was gone. The young man was panicked, calling all their relatives and acquaintances. He searched the neighborhood until dawn but found nothing, forcing him to turn to the police. The son revealed something important. Janat's husband had passed away over a year ago. Since then, her behavior had changed, and she started drinking. She had a habit of disappearing for days at a time. Still, the police began a search. They checked train stations, hospitals, and even the morgue. But Janat Saitova was nowhere to be found. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. It is true that she had gone missing before and was always found at friends' or relatives' homes, but this time it felt different. Although her children were deeply worried, the police decided there was no reason to sound the alarm just yet. She was an adult, with the right to go wherever she pleased. For now, they simply sent out notices about the missing woman to all police stations in the region.
2 days later, another woman went missing. This time it was her husband who came to the police station to report it. According to him, his wife, Dinara Januzakova, had been returning home by train from Aktobe. She had even called him along the way to say she was on her way home safely. However, when the husband returned from work that evening, he couldn't find her. It was clear that Dinara had made it home, as her travel bag and personal belongings were found right by the doorstep. The disappearance of 3 women in just 1 week deeply alarmed the residents of Shalkar. Naturally, various rumors began to spread among the public. Despite this, investigators were in no hurry to link the 3 cases. The women did not know each other and lived in different social circles, so it was possible that their disappearances under similar circumstances were just a coincidence. Nevertheless, police thoroughly searched the area around Dinara Januzakova's home. They discovered important evidence. About 10 meters from the house, they found her shoes and tire tracks from a light vehicle. This strengthened the theory that Dinara had been forced into a car. The first suspect was her husband. Since he was a police officer himself, he knew exactly how investigations were conducted and was aware of the other disappearances in the city. Investigators suspected that he might have used the situation to kill his wife, with whom he had a troubled relationship, hide the body, and then file a missing person report himself. However, the suspicion was dismissed. The husband had a solid alibi. He was at work when the incident occurred. The news of 3 women disappearing in 6 days spread throughout the city. While local newspapers and television channels reported it briefly, the lack of concrete information only fueled the public's fear. Human nature is such that when information is scarce, people fill in the blanks with their own imagination. This is how rumors of a maniac began to spread widely. Over time, these stories took a terrifying turn. Some began calling the unknown perpetrator not just a maniac, but a cannibal. Since the bodies of the missing women hadn't been found, people speculated that the criminal might have destroyed them. Meanwhile, the investigators had neither hard evidence nor a suspect. A few days later, the police found 2 teenage witnesses. They said they saw unknown individuals forcing Dinara Januzakova into a car. However, because they saw it from a distance, they couldn't identify the faces of the suspects, nor could they remember the license plate. But they were certain about the car. It was a white Vaz 2199. Following this, police began checking all cars of that model in the city. They also questioned former convicts, drug users, and those with histories of alcoholism to verify their whereabouts. But none of this yielded results. The investigation expanded to include all white Vaz 21099 vehicles in the entire region, and alerts regarding the 3 missing women were sent to every police station across Kazakhstan. Still, nothing came of it. The investigation reached a dead end. Nearly half a year had passed since the women went missing, and the case hadn't moved forward a single step. The investigation seemed to have hit a dead end. Nearly half a year had passed since the women disappeared, and the police still hadn't identified a single suspect. However, unexpected new information emerged. Residents fishing at a reservoir on the outskirts of the city discovered human remains in the reeds. A task force arrived at the scene immediately, retrieved the remains from the water, and sent them for forensic analysis. Unfortunately, it was impossible to determine the cause of death. Because the soft tissue had decomposed, only the skeleton remained. Due to the graphic nature of the footage, I cannot show it here on YouTube. I have posted the material on my Telegram channel instead. At first glance, there were no obvious signs of violence on the bones. Therefore, the theory was considered that the victim might have accidentally drowned. Sometime later, the forensic report was finalized. It was determined that the remains belonged to Olga Novitskaya, the first woman to go missing. However, experts still could not determine exactly how she died. This news shook the public even more than before. Rumors about a cannibal resurfaced, with unfounded stories spreading about the bones being gnawed. Regardless, the fate of the first missing woman was finally revealed, while the other 2, Janat Saitova and Dinara Januzakova, remained missing. As time went on, the investigation effectively stalled. 3 years passed. Most of the city's residents began to forget the tragic events, and life returned to normal. The criminal case was filed away among the unsolved. Investigators shifted their focus to other crimes. But everything changed unexpectedly. A 32-year-old man named Sagdat Korazbekov was brought to the police station for theft. He was already known to the police, having been convicted several times for theft and robbery in the past. During his interrogation, Korazbekov made a shocking statement. He claimed he had vital information about the women who had gone missing 3 years earlier and asked for protection. The investigators listened intently. According to Korazbekov, the Mamitov brothers were responsible for all the crimes. It was they who had kidnapped and murdered the women. He claimed to have been an involuntary witness to these events. He said he had wanted to report the crimes to the police earlier, but had remained silent out of fear of the Mamitov brothers. According to the investigation, during the first crime, Korazbekov and the Mamitov brothers were drinking at the reservoir outside the city. Korazbekov suggested calling a woman to join them, and through him, Olga Novitskaya was invited. She arrived alone. The investigation concluded that after drinking, they assaulted her and, fearing exposure, decided to kill her. They disposed of her body in the reservoir. A few days later, Janat Saitova entered their car under similar circumstances. According to the investigation, she was also killed that night, and the brothers hid her body to cover their tracks. The third victim was Dinara Januzakova. When she was walking down the street, she rejected the suspects' advances, which led them to attack her. They then took her outside the city to conceal the crime. After these 3 murders, the suspects lived normal lives for several years. Nurlan and Jocelyn even got married, and the youngest brother, Yerlan, was preparing to start a family. However, the arrest of Korazbekov eventually led to the exposure of their crimes. During the trial, the defendants tried to shift the blame onto each other and retracted some of their initial testimonies. Despite this, forensic evidence and other findings confirmed their involvement. Eventually, they fully confessed and asked for forgiveness from the victims' families. The court reached the following verdicts: Sadat Korazbekov, life imprisonment; Jaslan Mamitov, life imprisonment; Nurlan Mamitov, 25 years in prison; Yerlan Mamitov, 23 years in prison. According to official records, Nurlan Mamitov passed away in a correctional facility in 2018 due to poor health. The others continued to serve their sentences in a maximum security colony. And so, the case of the 3 women who went missing in Shalkar, which had remained a mystery for years, was finally closed. This tragic story remains one of the most notorious criminal cases in the history of Kazakhstan. How would you like to proceed with the next steps for your YouTube project?